What's up, guys and gals of the movement world? It's Sean Mishka, the Movement Miyagi, coming to you once again on behalf of Football Beyond the Stats and our Movement Play of the Week, this week for Week 10 of the 2023 National Football League season. And this week, just like we had 2 weeks ago, we're going to be featuring a running back, and that running back just so happens to be a past Iowa State Cyclone running back as well. Just a coincidence, of course, because Breece Hall from the New York Jets, again, formerly of the Iowa State Cyclones, 2 weeks ago, is very dissimilar in their running style and their ways of moving, being, and behaving compared to this week's featured mover, David Montgomery, now of the Detroit Lions, past Iowa State Cyclone also, but also past Chicago Bear. And what we're going to see from Montgomery is really this highly attuned, highly sensitive creature. He doesn't make his living and gain his yards by hitting home runs necessarily, even though we see him in a home run right here. We typically see him making guys miss, making a lot out of nothing in some cases, but also almost always doing it from having a high perceptual attunement, aka a sensitivity to the information sources that specify those affordances to act, or those opportunities to act, aka those affordances, as J.J. Gibson would tell us. And we're going to see that on a number of cases here today from Montgomery, and he's shown that throughout his NFL career. So let's get into the play. We're going to see it at 100% speed, and then again, see it at 50% speed also. So right off the bat, you're going to see some uniqueness from Montgomery, but I really want you to pay close attention to the perceptual attunement. Again, sensitivity to the specifying information sources. What do those information sources specify? The opportunities to act, which again are going to be individual and frame dependent, as we've talked about before. One more time here at 100% speed as we see Montgomery put a number of people on his poster, including right here, two guys running into each other. And then again, Derwin James trying to chase him down from behind. But Montgomery, with this constant perceptual information pickup on high alert, high sensitivity, the dude has some spidey senses. And the reason why Montgomery has to do that, or one of the reasons why he's able to do it, is because this is what his adaptability is channeled and flows from. Why do I say that? Well, Montgomery, unlike, say, a Breece Hall from 2 weeks ago, isn't some athletic phenom in the same way some other guys might be at this position. Guys like Breece Hall from, like I said, 2 weeks ago, also from Iowa State. Guys like Jahmyr Gibbs, who also is David Montgomery's own teammate here at the Detroit Lions. These guys make their plays through totally different ways, usually based on athleticism, hitting the gas pedal, being able to temper that gas pedal a little bit and play with it, but then hit opening and closing gaps or running out angles, running angles. David Montgomery, we typically don't see that from. What we see from him is this true perceptual connection. And these types of guys, as you guys know here at Football Beyond the Stats, I love that much more. I already have us at our playback speed here. So let's go ahead and get into it at 50% speed. And then I do want to talk about what we might be able to do to facilitate this type of behavior in skilled ball carriers also. Now, from this angle, from this vantage point, this hole, even though it looks large right now, when we see it from the end zone view, you're going to see it's extraordinarily large. So even though he's solving movement problem by movement problem in highly successive fashions, it really, the true nature of this movement problem solving process starts to exist right about here when Montgomery is already at the second level. You can see he's 5 yards deep in that line of scrimmage, or past the line of scrimmage. When he gets to the second level of the defense, he now has a safety one-on-one. We can't even see the safety yet, but I really want you to kind of think about what Montgomery might be attuned to and what he's adaptable around or because of. Okay, that's kind of what I want you to keep in mind here, because again, that perceptual attunement is that heightened sensitivity and awareness. Now, he has this chaser right here to his left. But as you're going to see in the other vantage point, really isn't too much of a threat, even though all 11 guys are a threat. But I want you to really start to look at his helmet there, okay? Now, again, kind of watch where his helmet moves. Now, I know we're speculating, and his eyes are behind a visor, and we don't have eye tracking glasses on him, which I would love to be able to see, right? To be able to determine where exactly he's looking at, what he's looking at, and how he's connecting to that. We can speculate. Because remember, behavior affords behavior. So what's unfolding in the problem and how it channels into the solver or the solution dynamics, we can speculate and hypothesize around. So again, let's watch that 50% speed, but I want you to watch Montgomery's eyes. Watch the subtle scanning from the helmet right there, just glancing over. So he's getting this updated online direct perceptual pickup moment to moment. Let's not miss it. Okay. Let's not miss it. Watch his helmet. I know we can't see his eyes, like I said, but watch the helmet. That glance in that immediate perceptual pickup, and then the finely connected, tightly coupled decisions and adaptability of the actions. Remember, they are all integrated perceptions, cognitions, actions, right? All integrated. We can't separate them from one another. Let's watch it again now that I've said that. Okay. I really want you guys to get into the nuances, the details here, because this begins to not only show who David Montgomery is, but why I believe so strongly that we need to set more alive movement problems for all of our players to solve, because it's in that aliveness that we can get these problem and solution dynamics and this mutual reciprocal exchange between them one more time through, especially right now when we see how close. Let's see if I could get it one more back a little further, right when the dude comes into the screen. Now we can see him, right? Him being the opponent right there off screen. But let's get our telestrator out, because I can't go without my telestrator, right? And I want you to kind of think about this, right? What are some of the information sources that David Montgomery might be attuned to? What is he sensitive to? What is he attempting to pick up? Whether he consciously is aware of it or not, it likely is this direct pickup, this direct perception. Again, one of the key specifying information sources for any ball carrier in any evasive agility situation is interpersonal distance, right? And how the distance is changing. Now, I drew the line right here. He's 7.5, 8 yards away from this safety. And typically in these types of movement problems, and David Montgomery is aware of this, it isn't going to be a 1v1 scenario and situation. Now, that's fine and dandy to utilize in a more, let's just call it training setting, in a practice environment, but we should try to ramp up or scale information through scaling complexity as quickly as we can. And so the reason why I pause it right here is I kind of want you to think about this for what we're going to talk about later on. What kind of practice and learning environment, or what kinds of problems, alive problems, we can set within that learning environment that might facilitate this type of behavior. Okay, what other information sources besides interpersonal distance? Posture and kinematics, as we typically talk about here at our movement play of the week. Okay, I know we can't see him. We will see him later on, and I just want you to kind of think about this. Posture kinematics will tell us about the potential opportunities to act. How is an opponent behaving? And again, it's not just this snapshot view like we might have right here, but I just am using this snapshot so we can highlight these things. And again, then we can think about interpersonal distance. We can think about posture and kinematics. We can think about changing angles. Okay. We can change about changing speeds, but then, and most importantly, we have to think about other moving bodies, right? Because again, it isn't just one opponent that typically sets a movement problem in what it is going to be, right? It is this unfolding movement problem in the disposition of it, constantly being updated, constantly changing, right? So I say all that so you can kind of set the tone for when we watch this unfold. Let's take it another 1 or 2 steps forward. Okay. That's kind of where I wanted you to kind of think about this. When this complexity of this movement problem starts to increase, Montgomery, or the more skilled mover, the more dexterous mover, are typically going to find themselves able to be more adaptable because they're getting this update of this information. One frame back, if I can. I realize I got a little bit too far there. It's when he gives this glance right there. Okay. He already knows how this cat right here, this safety, is coming and how he's positioned, right? But when he gives this glance to his left, and notice he did it all in relation to this deep safety that is coming in and coming downhill on him. But he gets this update of this dude right here who's entering his space, and that actually creates this extra opportunity to act. It's not only an opportunity to act, but it took away something from him. So he knows he has to adapt right now, on the fly, and in the moment. And that right foot strikes the ground. Again, this tightly coupled, intertwined, interwoven, entangled, and interdependent processes of perception, cognition, and action. We're seeing it, we're witnessing it. It's right here, living and breathing in front of us. And of course, that relates to him doing this crossover cut from right to left. Watch, right foot strike the ground, right to left, and these two cats run right into each other, right? With Derwin James hot on his heels. And again, even though David Montgomery might not be able to explicitly state where this guy is coming from behind, you can damn well be certain that he can feel him kinesthetically. If you've ever had a player or someone chasing you, you know it, you feel it. You can even pick up certain information about it just by feeling their presence or hearing auditory information, maybe some haptic and some touch. So all of this are these information sources that are coalescing together to kind of paint this picture that the more attuned mover is going to become sensitive to. Now, once he's in the open field, another very cool thing that we're going to see from David Montgomery at 50% speed, and we're already seeing it, guys and gals. Look at where his helmet is, okay? Now, I've talked about this numerous times, countless times before at Football Beyond the Stats, our movement play of the week. Too many players at lower levels are instructed and encouraged to look straight ahead in thinking that this is going to relate to faster movement on a football field. Now, if you were on a track and you were by yourself and you were running in a straight line, cool, I get it. You're not going to look over side to side to your opponents if you're in the 100-meter dash. But this is not track and field. This is American football, and where 1 or 2 guys you left in their dust, there are more guys that are coming. Usually a lot more guys that are coming, right? And the thing about this is, guys and gals, is I want you to watch David Montgomery's helmet here. And again, what is he attuned to? What is he adaptable around? The really cool part is going to come when he's dancing and tightroping down the sideline. But let's watch his head. Let's think about how often he's getting this updated perceptual pickup. Look at where his head is, and look at how it continues to pick up information. And it isn't only until he has to look to the sideline to get an updated visual perceptual pickup of said sideline that he actually looks from right to left and looks to the sideline. But watch when he starts tightroping. Again, this is with Derwin James out on his heels, right behind him, one of the most versatile and dexterous safeties, defensive players, not just safeties, defensive player in the entire NFL. He's got Derwin James behind him. He's got his own teammates hitting the deck. This trash that he's got to focus on getting around and through. And look at what he's doing. Updating the perceptual pickup. Let's not miss it. Watching in its entirety here at 50% speed. Look at that. Constantly to his right. And I know it seems small, but think about how often we might see guys get caught, get angled, and get angled to the point where they end up going out of bounds because they didn't have the updated understanding, this information detection that is continuously coming to a player about where the opponents are. Guys and gals, I cannot overstate how attuned this is. And here's obviously a Barry Sanders jersey that isn't Barry Sanders, unless he got dreadlocks as of late. But I want you to think about this, okay? Now that we see it from the end zone view, we can't see David Montgomery's eyes, but we can hypothesize as to what information he might be picking up and when he might be picking up. We're going to see it from a number of views here because this is going to show us. Again, I talked about how big that hole is. You can see it now, right? Again, the hashes are 6+ yards apart, right? And so look at how much space is here. So this isn't the difficult movement problem, the challenging movement problem to solve. All he has to do is hit this gap. So he gets to immediately perceive the behaviors of this dude right here. Okay. Look at this safety right now. And I want you to watch both of their behaviors, that safety and David Montgomery. Watch the relationship. Remember, problem and solution dynamics, the interaction in the changing states of organization between the two. Behavior affords behavior. So watch it unfold, this reciprocal dance. Once he gets the dude to stop and settle his feet, he now knows that he has a very easy two-way go, especially when he's in control of this dance. Okay? Watch it again. When he sees the dude stop his feet, now he knows that he can have this cutting action to go from right to left. He essentially could go either direction here. Okay. It all depends on what foot he's on and how comfortable he is adapting through it and around it. But shortly hereafter, he glances to his left and sees this dude, number 33, right here, coming from left to right, right? And so watch this. He knows he has to now adapt his action to get up out of danger, the challenge that was there. Very, very high level stuff here from David Montgomery. Cool stuff. And kudos to him for being able to do exactly this in the types of speeds that he's moving at and how complex this movement problem got in a short period of time. Let's watch it again now here. Look at him dance. I talked about it being a tightrope, and that probably does not do it justice. Let's watch when he gets to the open field and he hits the sideline here. He hits this angle, walk in his head, look at where the eyes might be, look at what information he might be picking up. And then now when he gets on the sideline, and this is something we're going to talk about, two things, ways that you might be able to facilitate this type of movement behavior. One of the things to do that people just don't do, something I've been doing for 5, 6, 7 years, probably with offensive skill players, is getting them to run as fast as they can, as close as they can to the sideline while taking in information in their periphery or that they have to actively look at. So they can glance from opposition that might be coming here, back down to the sideline and back again. And you probably wouldn't be surprised to find out, but maybe you would, as to how many players end up not really knowing and understanding where they are in these spatial temporal constraints or their relationship to the sideline. So this, again, super high level stuff from David Montgomery. In fact, wait till you see how close he was to actually stepping out. And in fact, some of this, it kind of looks like he was. And especially when we see him look from left to right, right to left in this constant updating of information. High level stuff here, guys and gals. Okay. Especially when he continues to give the glance over his shoulder and also with Derwin James hot on his heels. Okay. I talked about how close was he from certain angles. It looked like he could be out of bounds, right? Turns out there's a little bit of green grass there between his foot, the sole of his foot, the shoe, and the out of bounds line, the boundary there with both of those steps. But again, right now, at this moment in time, he is looking from left to right, right to left, and then constantly looking back down. Look at him right there. He knows that he has enough room. It's a game and margin of inches, sometimes not even inches here, as we find with David Montgomery at this moment. Let's watch it again or see it again, this time from this angle. And of course, they're doing it with the TV broadcast, but I implore you to stick with me just momentarily. Again, National Football League players are the adaptable creatures they are. A lot of times because of attunement to information. Okay. Information, whether it's the sideline and where one is in relation to it, information such as opponents converging on your path and angle, opponents chasing you from behind, opponents coming at you. Two movement problems, both of which I've begun to allude to as to how we might be able to train this. Okay. Actually, I'm going to show it from this other view right here. Okay. First one, 1v1 plus 1 or 2. What do I mean by that? 1v1, one guy in a safety. You can start there, relatively low complexity, maybe in a 6 to 10 yard width. In this case, let me see if I can get the dude in the screen, the dude being the safety, right? A 6 to 10 yard width, and usually 10 to 15 yards long. Okay. One player entering that tunnel, carrying the ball, the other player entering that tunnel, whether it's straight ahead coming downhill, whether it's at various angles. They can start in the box, they could start outside of the box. What's the box? Obviously, you would just draw that, right? Think about that. If I said, obviously the hashes are 6+. Let's just say we're 6 to 8, somewhere in that vicinity, yards wide, 10 yards to 15 yards long. Have both players enter the space, and the defender is just trying to tag off on, potentially, at least in most cases, the offensive skill player. The offensive player is trying to behave in a way that makes that guy miss. And now then once you start to change situations, meaning change the spaces, so you would widen that out a bit, okay? And obviously you want to make this repetition without repetition, changing the nature of the movement problem so the player themselves can change the solution dynamics or the processes of perception, cognition, and action, and the way that they might be connected to one another. Okay. So we might widen that out in the 12 to 15-ish yard range. Okay. Especially if we have the expectation that we are going to have not only this offensive player who's entering this space, and he probably would start back where on the 35-yard line here, or closer even to the line of scrimmage potentially. You have this cat coming in, changing the position that they're coming into it with. Okay. If they change their position, obviously it changes the affordances, it changes the speeds, the angles, the posture to the kinematics, the affordances and the opportunities to act. And then typically what we would do is we would 1v1, right? Skill player and opponent, +1 entering from outside the space typically, okay? +1 or 2, okay? So now that player being the ball carrier here, David Montgomery, has to scan and survey in a constant, continuous way to be able to pick up information sources and ways to adapt from that. No two problems are ever the same. Neither any two solutions change the place or position the initial conditions that each player is starting from. Okay. Hopefully that makes some sense. And then, of course, you get things like this that end up unfolding from it. You get emerging movement solutions based on a constantly changing problem. What's the other thing that we would do that I mentioned? Like I said earlier, running at high speeds, hitting the sideline. And typically, what I would do is I have guys start at the numbers. So let's say it would be probably not from the 40 because that's a long ways, but it could be. 40 is not that far, obviously. I would have it to where that individual is starting at the numbers, and there will be a chaser, usually like in the form of this cat right here. Maybe we would have a guy pursuing from behind. Okay. So the offensive skill player has to move relatively quickly while still looking to maybe make this guy miss. Or again, it could be any of these guys, right? Again, no two problems are ever the same. We want to change the initial starting conditions. But usually what I will do here, it will be 1v1 or 1v1 plus 1. Okay. Again, hopefully that makes some sense. A chaser from behind, a chaser from an angle. Okay. We would change the starting positions every single rep in most of these cases. If anything, you're changing the behaviors of this player. Okay. I said earlier about the 40 yards being maybe a little far. Typically, I'm doing this from the 25, 30, just because I would rather have them have more goes and more exposure to the constantly changing angles and position. But then once they do this, it is all about moving at high speeds down the sideline while trying to figure out what is unfolding in front of oneself, okay, or to the side of oneself as 36 begins to hit the angle. So it could have been 36 and 3 there. It can, an offensive skill player, we could, of course, add teammates as well. Okay. Now, we're not necessarily looking at guys going to the ground in our learning and training environment, say in the spring or summer, but what we are trying to do is allow players to become attuned and sensitive to constantly changing information sources. Where am I in relation to the sideline? Where are my opponents? What is our constantly changing angles? And what affordances, aka opportunities to act, are there and present for me to select from? Guys and gals, I cannot overstate how good this was from David Montgomery. Obviously, some very high level stuff, some very nuanced stuff, but some stuff that if you're not knowing what to look for, you might not know how it actually translates into the movement problems that you design in your learning and practice environment. Now, on that note, I mentioned the aliveness of those movement problems a number of times. Right now, myself and my peers at Emergence, we do have an offer running at least for the next 2 or 3 weeks. It's going to be for a limited time for you to pick up a free course that I have put together entitled It's Alive, where I get into the nuances and the nature of alive movement problems and how to assess the aliveness or the level of aliveness in your own learning environments and the practice activities or drills you utilize. So I'll put that in the comment section below. I would encourage you all to go pick it up. Again, it's completely free, no strings attached. Pick it up. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, hit subscribe, share it with your people. Obviously, the more love, the better. And if you have thoughts, ideas, and comments, put them in the comment section below, and we'd love to interact with you. So for week 10, I'm Sean Mishka, the Movement Miyagi. I will talk to you guys in week 11.